Good morning, good evening, whenever you're listening to this podcast. How's it going? I'm Tyler Dunn here with Jim Monis, the Go Long podcast at golongtd.com, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever, however. Jim, how you doing, my man? How you been? Cheers.
Well, we got a cheers to the weather today here in Western New York, don't we?
It's glorious. It's glorious, isn't it?
It's the off season.
We got 70s all week, baby.
It's the off season, so when you get that warm weather, it officially makes you feel like, it's time now. Like, what are we going to talk about? What's in the news in football? It's but there's plenty to talk about. There always is.
You've really reached, you've become a middle-aged man when what you look forward to most in life is mowing the lawn. I've been looking forward to that first mow for months, and it was unbelievable. Just popped a good audiobook on, listening to Atomic Habits, great book, on Chris Bergen's advice, right? We talked to him for a story at Go Long, the Northwestern linebacker. He highly recommended it, and everybody does. It's great, but it was good. I got to say, I'm off my game, though. I missed some spots. The grass was high. The neighbor thought that we were dead. She said, "Where you been?" The grass was getting pretty high.
They were concerned.
Yeah. But we were grinding on the draft. What can you do? 2 kids, draft coverage. It was lagging. But that first mow, it's hard to beat.
I mean, and not to mention you're writing a book.
That too, yeah. We're on the final surge there.
Just a couple things going on.
I don't know how gory I want to get with this, but with the mow, opened up the shed and there were a couple mice that scattered about.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking, okay, party's over, guys. Party's over. Now we're setting the traps every day and taking care of business there. But I started mowing, Jim, and let's just say on about the first or second lap around near the shed, there was a little carnage.
Yeah, I thought you were
carnage.
Yeah, I had a feeling you might go that way.
They were inside that John Deere, hanging around the blades, unfortunately. Hopefully Pete is not listening. But it's survival of the fittest. I guess that's why we're above mice on the food chain, right?
And when you're scouting players, awareness is such a major factor. Yeah, if the mice have to be a little bit aware of where they're resting or sitting. Yeah. There had to be some sense of, feeling to know that blade might be able to get you. And sounds like you try to give them a chance. At some point you have to have awareness.
You got to have some spatial awareness, right?
That's fair.
Spatial awareness. Very, very poor. And you know what? I let it run for a while before I popped the old blade.
That's what I'm saying. You were trying to.
I gave him a fair opportunity, right? It's kind of like you're at war. You let out a gunshot. There's a little warning shot there, and they didn't react. So, but other than that, it was a great mow. It was great.
But you feel like there's room.
What's that?
Room for improvement. There's room for improvement, though. You saw some things you weren't happy about.
Well, yeah, the push mower, with that tall grass, it stalled out a few times. Weed whack. I mean, is there a weed whacker that works in the world? Honestly, for the love of God. I mean, I feel like I want to take it like it's a hockey stick and just crack it against the goalie net and split it in half. Like, yeah, that gonna have to get a new weed whacker. So we're a little, it's looking pretty rough around the trees and in the yard, but we're gonna watch the film, correct our errors, and get after it.
You keep saying we.
Oh, we're gonna get Sonny out there. He's 9 months, but we'll get him out there. Yeah, he's working.
That'll probably be a good feeling for you someday.
Yeah, you know what though? It's one of those things I think I'm just gonna always want to do it. Yeah, you kind of can escape everything.
It's right? Some people like golf, some people like doing yard work. It's whatever you can do to get that escape for a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
Or go to the casino, or whatever that one thing is that you need to do to.
We were going to do a podcast a couple days ago, and you said, "Well, I got this window of opportunity because I'm shooting over to the old
casino."
Yeah,
it was pretty good. It was good. A little pre-dinner, a little blackjack. Had a
Did
good
you
table downtown. It was nice. Had a good table. Yeah, it was nice. Good time.
success with the
Yeah,
gambling
little
picks?
success, nothing big, but roller coaster ride, kept the heart beating,
It's good.
had
It's good.
fun, good
Keep that blood
entertainment,
flowing.
harmless entertainment.
Well, I figured for this podcast episode, Jim, we'd kind of break it off into two parts, as people probably see in their feeds right now. But the free agency is pretty much over, right? There's a few out there you can get at bargain rates, but by and large, all the big names are on teams. The draft's over. Everybody's moving on to the 2029 mock drafts by now, maybe 2030s, maybe looking at some sonograms and, reading some heartbeats, seeing who's got some good spatial awareness in there.
It is
But
incredible. I swear I saw something from McShay right away after the draft. Like he seriously had one ready to go. Like top 20, for next year. Quarterbacks are going to be, it's like, man.
I mean, I get it. It's that
No, it is. It's
chum in the water. People want it.
It's no doubt.
Who are the names? It's always funny how people decide, all right, who's going to be awful next year, and we'll mock them at the top of the mock for the future.
I think he did it I think he said he was just ranking the players, no teams.
Okay, well, that's
fair.
We'll allow it.
I mean, it is his job. It's his job.
But with everything off-season wise, kind of figured out, we've got some big decisions kind of looming. Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, right? There's some other stuff to work out, but we figured we'd do one episode on a couple teams each that we think have positioned themselves really, really well and could maybe make a serious run at the playoffs, contention. Just we think that they handled their business the right way and added talent the right way. And then part two, we'll look at the other side of the coin, Jim, and see what teams kind of screwed themselves potentially and are treading water or worse. But let's start with happy times, good times, and I'll let you take the floor.
So mine are pretty, I don't know if they're boring for who I think is going to be good because they were good last year, but I just can't. I'm pretty simple if you have a quarterback and you have defense, I think you're going to be just fine. And I think the two teams, no matter, the one team is kind of obvious, the Buffalo Bills. I just see no reason why they aren't going to make a run at it again. And the Green Bay Packers. And my reasoning for the Packers right now is why would Rodgers come back and play unless he really fully is invested and believes and is upset, maybe a little embarrassed. I don't know. I mean, we talk about him all the time. So, I mean, it's almost, and I've admitted I can't stick up for him anymore with how he's played in the playoffs. It makes no sense to me, but he's still the best. He's still the best in the league, at least one of the top 3, 5, however you want to get into those arguments. And then look at their division. Bears, Vikings, Detroit.
Counting out Dan Campbell's
that's what I'm saying. So right off the bat, you're still, I mean, to me, there's such a gap, quarterback wise in that division. To me, same with the Bills. I think the gap between Josh Allen and every other quarterback in that division is big. So I just like those teams' chances to at least, get that number 1 or 2 seed, get some home field, make the run. It's boring though. I mean, I know it's kind of boring, but.
Well, it's pandering, Jim. You're pandering to our audience. So that's never a bad thing, here and there. Pick your spot. No.
It's just so.
Politician Monas.
It's hard to believe. I know. It's just, I can't see those teams faltering. I just don't see it.
I don't either. I know those are 2 great picks. And I'm guessing a lot of people listening to this listen to Bob McGinn and myself on the podcast.
Well, I was good. That one really had me, because I'm sitting there. I defend Gutekunst. I'm kind of, on his side. I think their team is pretty good. I don't know these rookies that they drafted. Like, I don't know them well enough if they're going to be plug and play starters. Those 2 guys from Georgia that Green Bay took. I think they're plug and play. I mean, they took them in the first round. So, a lot of that will depend, factor in on their defense for sure. But you lost Devontae Adams, tough one, but you didn't lose the guy that matters. So
Yeah, I think they were stunned to lose Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers,
amazing.
Brian
Still
Gutekunst.
amazing.
Players were. I talked to a couple. Nobody really saw it coming. I think we all assumed like, okay, it's this package deal, quarterback, receiver. They've kind of Rodgers has really been able to extend his greatness because of Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams has been able to become a top 3 wide receiver because of Aaron Rodgers. They kind of seem best for each other, but you lose him. You get a decent haul. You don't have to pay him. I feel like, at Bob's point, and it's hard to argue with Bob. He talks to scouts around the league.
Yeah.
Like he knows these prospects better than anybody in the media, I'd say. So yeah, I don't know. Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, Christian Watson. We'll see how these guys pan out, but the philosophy of Gutekunst, I think, is sound. And you talk about this on this podcast too, Jim, where you lose a wide receiver, and instead of just kind of treading water and just drafting a guy or signing, like I feel like they're trying to win this new way, this different way, and they want, like you said, they've got the quarterback, they've got a hell of a running game. If they can figure out the line, there's they lost some guys up there, but they drafted some guys too. You can win this other way. I mean, they're really strong in the middle of their defense. You've got Kenny Clark now, Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, Devondre Campbell. Like that's the middle of your defense. Where I think of these playoff losses that the Packers have had, and it's been Marshawn Lynch running right up the gut. Seattle. It's been just, San Francisco, Raheem Mostert doing whatever he wanted to in the NFC Championship game. Last year, San Francisco, third and 7, third and whatever it was, and they run for the first down. Like they needed to get physically tougher, and that was kind of the counterpunch that I think Gutekunst had. I think that he didn't just want to keep throwing the uppercut, throwing the same. He's looking for a different punch. I think if these guys work out, hey, I don't know much about Quay Walker, Devontae. Well, I really don't. I'm not saying I'm an expert on Georgia football.
Nobody really knows. I mean,
but his track record is pretty good when it comes to drafting defensive players.
I appreciate you bringing that up because we talked about that on the draft happy hour about that spinning wheels, losing a guy in free agency and then drafting his position in the first round. It's just, did you get better? What did you do? And this is his way of saying, okay, we have a philosophy. We stick to the best player, the guys we think can help us right away, and however they believe. I'm happy that because I like Gutekunst, and I like to see how he didn't panic. He stuck to what he believes. Took 2 guys, which I've always said, if I was ever a GM, if you had the quarterback in place, I swear I'd be drafting defense nonstop.
Is that right?
Yep, just keep building that defense. The quarterback will take care of the offense. He'll find a way.
That's interesting because I think a lot of people would think you go the Polian route. Remember with Peyton Manning, it seemed like they were drafting Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James, Dallas Clark, just like a weapon high in the draft year after year. But maybe the other way is better. Maybe you just let that quarterback figure it out.
Yeah, and I'm saying that like I wouldn't force it. I wouldn't do that either. I wouldn't go the other way and just say, just because you have a great quarterback, let's just keep giving him weapons. No, at some point, that's the reward of having that great quarterback. He's going to make other people better. And if you put a defense out there with a great quarterback, it's just a formula for success, and we've seen it over and over. Like, you're going to make the run every year. You'll be relevant.
And where I would disagree with Bob is he basically labeled the receiving core a collection of number 3s, which he made a really good point. I mean, if you look at the raw numbers and what they've done,
I agree. He might be right.
He might be right. I think, and we talked about, I think, and you may be as well, I'm a little higher on Sammy Watkins. It's a huge if. But if he's out there, if he's on the field,
you never know.
He can still give you something.
Boy, that would be. That would be the story of the year right there.
Alan Lazard is Alan Lazard. He'll block really well. He'll make the catch when it's thrown to him. He's not a burner, but
No.
he is what he is. They need something out of Amari Rogers, third round pick from last year. Christian Watson is kind of Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's going to beat you deep. He's going to run the deep over.
And
They're going to work that deep play action. They can get
there's still
something out of
time.
him.
There's still guys out there. There's still time. You never know who could sneak in there, and it's. But
Odell Beckham.
boy, that would be fun too. Beckham. To think that Beckham and Sammy could be on the same team after that, being in that same draft.
Oh man, that'd be great.
All the time oh man,
you had a few conversations about those two and the Bills.
It's incredible to think about.
Meetings.
To think that they would both be in Green Bay.
Anything else on Green Bay?
No, I was curious to hear. I was kind of curious to hear how you thought about that, because I know they are boring. I don't want to say boring picks, but I mean, if we're talking about the two teams I have high expectations for, it's those teams. I mean, I like the way they're built. Love the quarterbacks. Love the defenses.
And I'm going to go back to, so our subscribers can read the whole series at golongtd.com. All of Bob's draft coverage, it's underneath the McGinn draft tab at the top of the screen. So every single position, he's got a column, leads with a story with an angle, and then it gets into the rankings, which is really a poll of the scouts and all of their thoughts. But Quay Walker was his number 3 linebacker. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it now. Opinions were all over the place. Check it out to read in full. But one scout said that his instincts suck, but the guy can run. You take a shot on him. He's not a green dot. Doesn't think he can run a defense. Another guy says he's physical, taking on blocks. And what else we got here? Another guy says, another scout, it's hard to find those ones that are big and can run. He'll strike you. He'll be a Mike. He'll be able to match guys athletically in coverage. I don't know what else you really want out of a linebacker. Like that's
funny. The way you just said that, I was thinking, man, that sounds okay to me.
Yeah,
here's my last team that I was thinking about, but the 49ers, I'm always fascinated with how they're, what they're going to do at quarter. Like, there's no way Garoppolo is going to be there, is there? I mean, that thing's got to be done, right? They said goodbye to him. Like,
I would think that teams are waiting to check out his shoulder.
Yeah, and I'm just not ready.
He can't throw. He can't work out for anybody. Why would you?
I just like that team so
trade
much.
Anything for him?
If Debo comes back, and I just love that team so much. But I'm not ready to put Trey Lance in that. I need to see him play, because like we talked about, what I saw from him did not look good to me. So
definitely a team that I'm planning on doing a deep dive on this offseason, because
a lot of drama.
Reasons you're talking about. There's a lot of intrigue. I mean, they were a game away from the Super Bowl. You're handing the keys to a pretty big unknown.
Complete unknown.
I think Deebo Samuel's warming back up, it seems. I don't know. The fact that we just haven't heard much the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I think is probably good for San Francisco. And you've got players on both sides of the ball who can just take over a game.
That's why I'm intrigued by them.
Kittle, Debo, Bosa, Warner. All over the place. Tough players. So
agree. So who you got? Who are teams that you expect some big things for? Who are the teams you're running to FanDuel? You're going to FanDuel tonight to take.
Well, I'm not gambling anymore, Jim. I'm done. I'm out.
You won enough. You had your fill.
Yep, I took advantage of those free giveaway.
You
I
did
made out pretty good, and I know when to say no. I know my strengths. All right, I think this could backfire. The old takes exposed police could come and get me. This team has basically been bait on the line for so many people, year after year. Do you remember those infomercials back in the 90s? Banjo minnow lures. They were,
No,
you
I
don't.
don't. That doesn't ring a bell.
Oh my God. This commercial was on. It was almost like on as much as the Tom Amansky back-to-back AAU World Championship commercials. But it was a fishing lure, and it was on TV all the time. And we got it when we were little kids, and we went fishing with our grandpa all the time. I don't know if we caught one fish in that lure. I mean, on TV they're showing like these 25-inch bass just taking it. That's kind of been the Miami Dolphins for a lot of people for several years. But I'm going to buy that banjo lure, throw it in the water, and believe in 2022. Right now, I kind of like Miami. I think that they have a smart coach in Mike McDaniel who is going to maximize everybody in the run game, especially. They went out and they just added a ton of talent. And I think if you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, you have to do it. I mean, go right down the list. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, but Cedric Wilson was really good last year for Dallas. Terran Armstead at left tackle. I mean, you know the Saints as well as anybody.
I really like him. Strong pickup.
Connor Williams at left guard. Look at their running game. Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Miles
I think
Gaskin. You got four backs.
you made a good point talking about the coach being smart, and he's had success with Garoppolo. We've talked about it on this show. I think Tua can be like, I see those guys as similar type players where Tua has shown some signs of good things, just like Garoppolo does. The one thing they both have in common is just the gut wrenching, horrible decision making turnovers that you can't explain. But can that be, can that change? Sure.
I mean, you just made my point. The fact that they were able to move the ball and win games and score points with Jimmy Garoppolo, who just kind of he's that no kind of quarterback where you almost had three pick sixes against Green Bay at Lambeau Field in the playoffs. I feel like Tua's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I
couldn't say that yet. But yes, could he be better? Yeah, I think he might be able to be.
There's a little more movement. I don't know. I mean, he was accurate last year. It was when they had that winning streak.
He was so good on opening drives of games, and the way they do play action, he is so natural with it. And then the red zone and the decision making, you just can't explain it sometimes.
Yeah. That's true.
There's certain guys that you have to just that's the only thing that really jumped out every week I watched him. And you're never going to consistently win when you have the quarterback you can't have that flaw in your game where you turn the game changes on a turnover,
I'm not ready to take that leap and just say that he's going to be Josh Allen next year, but I think that there's a formula that could work for Miami.
But I feel bad now. Like to me, that's a gutsy pick. Like you put some where I just took Green Bay and Buffalo. Wow, that was real hard. So would every fifth grader.
One of us has a set of balls and one of us doesn't. Jim, what can you do?
I was gonna say I'm just feeling a little like I'm letting you like, oh really, Jim? You think Green Bay and Buffalo might be good? I mean, I think they were pretty much the number one seed last year, and Buffalo, whatever. That's that old NFL.com has those bold predictions every week. Yours is more of a bold prediction.
Jalen Waddle. I mean, we forget about him as a rookie. I mean, he's basically kind of your running game. I mean, you can dump it off to him and just let him go.
I mean, the tight end is a weapon.
Mike Gesicki, who, by the way, is now coached by one of the best tight end coaches in NFL history, John Embry.
Ooh, good call. I like that.
He coached Tony Gonzalez in Kansas City. He coached George Kittle in San Francisco. And in between,
I like that. Miami, yep.
You look at Embry's past, Jim. Like he had Jordan Cameron in Cleveland when Jordan Cameron had that crazy year of like 900 yards. He had Kellen Winslow in Tampa. He had, I want to say Chris Cooley in Washington. Every tight end he's had has had like a career year. bookended by Tony Gonzalez taking off and George Kittle. I don't know why San Francisco would fire him, why they would let him out of the building, but he's in Miami and he's gonna. I mean, I think Mike Gesicki has 1,000 yards. Well, they've got a lot of weapons, and we'll see with Tua. He's got that potential to be 1,000-yard, 12 touchdown tight end.
Yeah, and that style of offense that they run, I mean, those tight ends have success. So,
and we're only talking about the offense. I think defensively, look, I've criticized their drafts. Chris Greer has been there a long time. There's been some bad picks mixed in there, but a few of them have a shot. I mean, Jalen Phillips turned it around last year, showed some potential. Christian Wilkins and the D line, you signed Emmanuel Ogba. He gave you some pass rush. I guess the pass rush would maybe be a little bit of concern. Like, see what you get out of those guys compared to you go to the AFC West. Every single team has two like legit studs.
You really did made a bold prediction because I you did. I mean, I'm saying I like it. Like, there's always a team. Obviously, it's going to take a step you didn't really think about, and they have that potential to. If Tua,
Xavier Howard might be the best cornerback in football.
Question.
He covers and he makes plays. I think you know who the wild card might be. They didn't have many high picks, but this Channing Tindall, I don't know much about him, but just researching, watching a little. If all right, like this is the big wild card. If he as an athletic linebacker can kind of be that dude who can spy and roam and keep his eyes on Josh. I mean, it's about Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen kills his team. He owns the Miami Dolphins right now. But if he can be that player, you're right. They need an athletic linebacker who can. You're not going to stop Allen, but contain him to an extent, steal some possessions. Maybe he's that guy that gives him a shot.
Especially after the Micah Parsons success. I don't know much about this, but might not be that edge guy that Parsons was, but that type of athletic player that can change the game.
Well, just to continue to be a marketing whiz here and tease Bob's draft series, right? I've got Channing Tindall's scouting report up right now, Jim. So this is from the scouts, and yeah, I mean it's all over the place. One guy said he gets locked on a guy and it's over. When he arrives, he is not in a pleasant disposition. His issue is he's not smart. You just worry about him mentally. So this guy's basically saying he's violent, but he's not that smart. One guy said he's going to be like Bobby Wagner. If it clicks, he could be a stud. Wow. Another scout, he worked out crazy like all those Georgia guys did. They use him to do one thing, run in a straight line. He ran a 4.5, 6'2", 228. He played in 50 games and never started because they rotate their linebackers so much at Georgia. It's hard to figure out. All right, so let me ask you this, Jim. You're a scout. You're studying a team a historically great defense like Georgia. They had just their whole defense was drafted. How do you figure out who's good, who's a product of the system? That's got to be so hard to sort through.
Georgia had a defense like this when I was scouting the Southeast. Bakari Rambo was the safety. They had in fact, I want to say we took their defensive tackle, Jenkins, with the Saints. I'd have to go back and look at that draft, but they had like 9 starters get drafted. And I remember you basically you could possibly spend 2 to 3 days there just on their defense. Like if you're really doing it the right way, it's probably worthwhile to take that time as a scout. And then you might come back a month later and then spend, 2 days on the offense, if you have to. But I'm telling you, there are certain teams that where during the week, you're like Florida State was that team when I was scouting too, where they were, you're looking at 18, 19 guys. Like, it's unbelievable the amount of time you spend. Yeah. And to your point, it can be guys that aren't starting is where we were talking about that.
The Bills, they took a chance on a player like that from Georgia on the other side of the ball, right? James Cook, running back.
Oh,
he didn't start that much. He was underutilized, but you're projecting this player to fit in the NFL game. which it happens. Look at George
It
Kittle at
happens.
Iowa.
It happens.
I mean, George Kittle statistically wasn't
Well,
used much.
remember we talked about that. He had drops. He didn't put up great stats. I mean,
They had his
but the
weight
whole NFL
ballooning.
saw, but remember the whole NFL saw him that way. That's why he did, so it wasn't just he really, where like Cook goes in the second round. That's fifth round. Talking about Kittle. That
That's
is
true.
the NFL, just everybody saw him the same.
Everybody did miss him, but something inside of him projected well because it was year 2 that he set the record for most receiving yards ever by a tight end.
Incredible.
I have that Georgia defense up in 2012 that you referenced there, and
Okay.
they had some stuff. It wasn't like this group, but yeah.
No, but go through it. Yeah, I was talking about the amount of guys. This crew, I think, probably had more first rounders.
Alec Ogletree had
Ogletree.
111 tackles.
Man,
Jarvis Jones, 14 and a half sacks. I forgot about Jarvis Jones. He went high, right? Pittsburgh first round.
Yeah, he just was yeah.
But remember the short arms. He didn't have the stature, but he had the production.
A lot of things. He was tough. He was a tough, good football player. But yeah,
Kari Rambo, Sanders Cummings,
liked him.
Don Jenkins.
Jenkins was the guy we drafted in New Orleans too.
Kwame Geathers. Remember all the Geatherses? There's a bunch of them.
He was huge.
Yeah, there was a decent crew there.
Decent. They weren't like you said, they didn't pay but they had a good amount drafted. I really want to say they had 9 drafted.
One more team for you. Yeah, we'll see with Miami. I just feel like
that's a bold. I like it.
Tyreek's going to be a problem. I don't care who his quarterback is. I mean, you get him the ball.
Don't think for a second. Don't think for a second the Bills were like great. Like we sit there and we've been trying to beat him in KC these last couple of years, and now we got to deal with him in our division.
Well, if I'm Brandon Beane, yeah, I'm guessing he'd be the one in charge at this point on deciding who to sign, although he probably has Sean McDermott in his ear on this matter.
No.
Right, you're doing everything in your power to get James Bradberry.
I honestly, that would be hard for me to think he doesn't end up in Buffalo. Just knowing the way Sean used to talk. Sean loved Bradberry, loved him. So
when did you guys talk about him?
We just talked. I think I'm going to tell you why we talked about him, because Sean wanted to know what we felt about him coming out when he was coming out of Samford. Because Sean, I think he was trying to see kind of, hey, how did you evaluate him, coming out, to see if we were on the same page with him. Like, this is my style guy, like physical.
Testing you in dugout.
Yeah. And he was a guy we did spend a lot of time on. I can remember going to Samford's practice. In fact, I was there with Mark Ross, a friend of our, NFL Network. I remember we were at practice together. I mean, he looked like an NFL starting corner. I mean, we always talk about that. Sometimes you just see a guy like, take him off the bus, he can play. But anyway, that was his way. We were just talking about Bradberry, and that was a guy we went back and forth on. Ed Reed loved him at the time when he was coaching in Buffalo. Ed Reed loved James Bradberry. I do remember that.
It makes a lot of sense, even though you drafted one in the first round. I mean, you don't know Tre'Davious White's status.
Can't have enough of them.
You really can't.
Window is open, right? Bring them on. Keep bringing them on.
Waddle as a number 2, number 3 now in the slot against your third or fourth best. I mean, it's just there's a lot of problems that Miami can create there with a smart coach. That's what makes me take this leap, Jim, with Miami, is you have somebody who can devise an offense and think 3 steps ahead of your defense. It's not like they've got some retread where we've seen with this, dunce can do with an offense. I mean, this is a smart coach who's gonna scheme up things. I mean, we've seen okay quarterbacks have really great seasons when they've been schemed up.
No question.
Right, individual seasons. I mean, Nick Foles, when that offense, when it was working with Chip Kelly, right? They have 27 touchdowns, 2 picks one year. Hey, lightning in a bottle can be struck. So, all right, give me Miami. And then for the other team, I'll go with the Baltimore Ravens. I just feel like we've kind of been sleeping on a perennial playoff team where they were 8-3 at the end of November last year after they beat Cleveland. And then right around that is when they lost Lamar Jackson. But it wasn't just him. They had an apocalyptic string of injuries, both sides of the ball, all over the place. It was awful. I mean, they had like fourth stringers out there in the secondary. Just a really sad group at times. And yet, listen to how December and January went for them.
They were
At Pittsburgh, 2019 loss. At Cleveland, 24-22 loss. Green Bay, remember that? Tyler Hundley was running all over the place. They
yes,
gave that game away. They should have had it.
should have had
31-30
it.
loss. They lose at Cincy 41-21. Burrow threw for about 900 yards after the defensive coordinator who has since been fired in Baltimore, who I actually like a lot, Wink Martindale, was right talking smack, saying we don't have his gold jacket or all that. And then they lose to the Super Bowl champs, the Los Angeles Rams, 2019, 1 point. Odell had a couple clutch catches late in the game that won that. And then they lost in overtime to the Steelers. So they're out there with this ragtag bunch and lost these 1 and 2 point games to finish 8-9.
No,
You
it's
get Lamar Jackson back, who's going to be hungry. He's
not
got
just
a lot of
him.
money to play for.
Their corners, the defensive backs,
Yes.
they were so banged up last year. They're getting those guys back. This could be now. I like this pick. Like I like what you're saying here. This is going to be where can Lamar's legacy end up? Can he ever get past Mahomes and Josh Allen? You know, can he do it? And
Let's not forget about training camp, Jim. Too. Remember the running backs that went down? J.K. Dobbins, Gus
the
Edwards,
whole team,
Justice Hill. I mean, they lost 3 backs before the
the whole
season
team,
began. Yeah.
they seriously weren't even right. So, but this to me will be this is where legacy will always be. Like, is he going to be the guy that was just incredible but ran into Josh Allen and Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean
But I like
we're
that.
We're gonna see. They did trade Hollywood Brown, obviously,
Yeah,
who Lamar Jackson lobbied for. He told
Brown.
management to draft Hollywood Brown.
Crazy. And Brown dropped. I like that they did that. He drops too many for me.
He dropped a lot of passes, and
those are game changing. Like I'm sorry, but those aren't characteristics of teams that win Super Bowls. Like guys that drop passes or like I just there's certain guys like go let somebody else change him, get him fixed.
Yeah, I
he
don't
is
know if it's
obviously he's a weapon. I'm not saying I don't want to say he's not a weapon,
but it's not as catastrophic of a loss as people might think. They
I don't
like
think
Rashad Bateman a lot. They've got Devin Duvernay. I mean, it's not murderer's row of pass catchers.
not when you have
But
Lamar.
their offense is different there.
Don't forget about that tight end. That tight end is a monster.
Mark Andrews. It starts with him.
So
they drafted Isaiah Likely, friend of the program, came on the happy
hour.
hour.
That was cool. I saw that. Yeah.
But look at the first round. So you trade Hollywood Brown away. So you've got these 2 first rounders. Doesn't it seem, Jim? I mean, so you were in the draft rooms and you're watching Baltimore year after year. I mean, ever since Ozzie Newsome took that thing over 96 and drafted Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis and set that whole foundation for success, it just seems like this team capitalizes on other teams' screw-ups. Like other teams just let a really good football player trickle down into the mid first round, late first round, and Baltimore pounces year after year. Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame, safety. You could make the case he's the best player in the draft. And they got him in the middle of the first round.
So you add him and then they get healthy at defensive back.
Exactly. And they signed Marcus Williams.
And you got Marcus Williams. So you have him at safety with Hamilton.
Tyler Linderbaum, Notre Dame.
This is
center.
good.
Iowa. I'm sorry. Iowa center, like best center prospect that Pro Football Focus has ever graded. So, and you get him at the end of the first round. Like it happens year after year with this team. I'm pulling it up right now. You go through their drafts. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, way back in 11, Jimmy Smith, 27th overall. Torrey
Yeah.
Smith, 58th overall. Even that year, Pernell McPhee,
Yeah.
165.
Yep.
Uh, gosh, you go to
That's a good one.
they drafted. I forgot they drafted Kyle Juszczyk. Then San Francisco got him. C.J. Mosley,
Mosley was,
Zadarius Smith, 122.
yeah.
I mean, they don't. They have their misses like any team, but
I was
Matt
gonna say
Judon, 146 in 2016.
strong drafts. Well, the best thing about the two things about the Ravens, I still want the story on how you have your MVP quarterback, but yet you took the tight end from South Carolina, Hurst, before him.
Yeah.
That story I need more on that one. And then this new thing with Greg Roman, it just came out, with players saying that's always scary. You don't want players rumbling like that in the media about the offensive coordinator.
Did it surprise you, or was it?
I can't say it surprised me. I think it's another example of, and I'm okay with it, just where players are just feeling a little more empowered. And if they don't believe in a coach and they think it's hurting their career, they're going to make sure that gets out there.
It wasn't just Hollywood Brown either. I remember hearing it from other receivers that left. Was it Willie Snead maybe when he left? I think he was vocal. Steve Smith on NFL Network had that epic rant.
Epic.
Out of nowhere, railing against Greg Roman and called his route designs and everything basically elementary, right?
It's a hard one, just working with him. I don't spend enough time in the XO department. We're not in those meetings and really understanding what, so that's where I don't ever know how, obviously he knows a lot about football and his designs of his offenses, and they're fun to watch. I mean, that's a proven stat, but I don't know. It's just funny when players come out like that.
It's interesting. I mean, you've said it several times, but he wanted Matt Castle. Like that was his guy in Buffalo, and he didn't want Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor becomes the starter. Greg Roman becomes this, running quarterback guru, play designer from Colin Kaepernick to Tyrod Taylor to Lamar Jackson. Almost kind of falls into that when he didn't really want that kind of quarterback.
I would like to know how much Anthony Lynn had to do with our offense when Tyrod was, I felt like Anthony Lynn I'm talking about kind of when he came in. I just wonder how good Anthony Lynn, I think he was pretty good play caller.
And he's in San Francisco now as the assistant head coach, which you lose Mike McDaniel, but you gain Anthony Lynn. That running game isn't going to miss a beat.
No. But
Guys, I forget how good your running game was, though, in 2015, Jim. I mean,
we talked about it, it was scary.
2,432 yards, 19 touchdowns. And it was shady. I mean, he missed 4 games. Carlos Williams, and he missed 5 games. It was a little bit of everything. Mike Gillisley had a few moments in there.
Oh, we got him off practice squad.
Yeah.
That was a guy we all liked. Our pro scouting department, Gerald Dixon, myself, we did some good work on him. We liked him. When I scouted him in Florida, he was just that captain, tough guy that you wanted running back, and then and that's how the pro scouting department works, where Gerald Dixon brings him up to me. He's like, hey man, this guy looks good, he's on the practice squad. And I was like, I liked him at Florida, and then I watch him a little bit. Hey, like him, Whaley likes him, boom, done, pick him right off.
What a great find. I remember in Florida, wasn't the thing free Gilly? Like they wanted him to get the ball more, all the fans.
Yeah, they
back then.
Yep.
Then he scores 3 touchdowns for the Patriots in the opener in 2017.
Incredible.
And then he's just gone. But you're right, Greg Roman, it's interesting. I've talked to a coach who he coached with, and this particular coach just went out of his way to say how much of a genius Greg Roman is when it comes to the run game, and that he just
Yeah,
does things that other coaches aren't even thinking of.
yeah.
Richie Incognito, another one. When he was in Buffalo, he was blown away. I mean, here's a guy who's coached with or played for just about every kind of coach. Could not say enough about Greg Roman's mind. So it's just wild, isn't it crazy? Like here are receivers that are saying the guy's dumb as a play designer. Yet you hear again and again that he's brilliant when it comes to the run game. The Ravens obviously are going to have to lean into that run game pretty hard this year.
Fascinating. I agree. I mean, that's how I look at it when receivers, and it's funny that Greg Roman's known for the run game. It's the receivers that have issues with them.
Yeah.
So it's something to pay attention to. But that team talent was, that's a really good, the AFC. I mean, we've talked about the AFC is just, that's insane. I
Give
mean, we
me
didn't.
Baltimore's front office and setup and culture and all that stuff that goes into building a team over trying to
Guys have been
like
there.
just snap a finger with the Deshaun Watson, right? Like, I
They've
mean, we'll
had,
see what happens in Cleveland, but
yeah. Well, and it's funny how you talked about the Jets draft and you really like what the Jets did. Joe Douglas, that's where he, learned to scout was Baltimore. That's his whole history. And he brought his right hand man up with the Jets. His name's Chad Alexander, who I've known Chad, who was on the pro side. He brought him with him from Baltimore. So, Joe might be starting to get that same consistency of drafting guys and building free agency and all. If that quarterback hits, but I'm thinking about that now. That this AFC East, the cultures might be, with Miami's new coach, the Jets doing some things, Patriots, obviously, it's something to pay attention to. I mean, that division, I don't think you're going to have those easy games.
I feel like Ozzie Newsome, in talking to him for the book, he really stressed as a GM how he trusts his scouts, right, and the work that they put in.
Man, I'm
All
telling
year
you,
round, and that really is how their board was built. Obviously, he kind of passed the reins down to Eric DaCosta, but Joe Douglas is probably going to be the same way in New York, where he came up as a scout, traveling, living on the road, talking to these guys, watching these guys nonstop. Where
it's
a lot of teams aren't run by those kind of GMs. It's cap guys taking, and not to say one's good or bad. I mean, we've seen like a Mickey Loomis have success, right? I'm guessing Sean Payton probably had a lot to say about that team.
But Mickey didn't try to be anybody he wasn't. Like he didn't try to take over and say, no, I want this guy. Mickey he listened, trusted scouts. Sean Payton trusted scouts. We've talked about it. It's fun when you're like Baltimore. It's fun working for when it's like a machine. Like everybody is like, as a scout, all the work you do and all this effort you're putting in, it's going to work out because the guys at the top are, they got this thing.
That's how it's really described around the league, a machine in Baltimore. It's just this well-oiled, self-sustaining scouting machine.
Yeah, they keep their guys. I mean, they keep DaCosta, they had him in place. Joe Ortiz is another right-hand man in Baltimore. Known him forever. I always respected him.
So, boy, Lamar's got them by the you-know-what, though, doesn't he? He can ask for any amount of money he wants.
That's going to be... That's history right there.
I mean, if you're Baltimore, what are your other options? He's not going to... You know what he is. You can win with him. He's an MVP. You have to pay him. I think he's in that category.
Oh, yeah. There's no question.
Yeah.
How could you justify, how are you going to ever beat Mahomes and Josh Allen? I'd take take your chances with him and you have a good defense.
Yep.
So.
And you're going to keep drafting well with that machine that you have. All right. That's enough of the rainbows and sunshine and flowers. And
we got the
Mice out of the
Dolphins bold
shed.
prediction.
No, we got to get to
Ravens
the
getting
mice out of
back.
the shed now, right? We got to get to the bad.
That's always fun.
All right. So
I'm
that was
like,
part
I'm gonna
one.
come. I think my takes on the bad are gonna be a little more like a little more bold predictions.
I like it. I like it. All right. So without further ado, we'll finish up this episode of part one and get on to part two. Thank you, everyone. All right, everyone. This is the Go Long Podcast, part two. So, part one, we broke down the teams we think are positioned really well for 2022, post free agency, post draft. Now it's time to look at the teams who, maybe not so much, Jim. I kind of went out on a limb on one team particularly in part one. I think you're going to go out on a limb here. So why don't you take the stage?
So, yeah. So, I went big with, I can't believe I think Green Bay and Buffalo should be good this year. The teams I think I've had enough of.
It's a good way to put it.
That I think are going to take a step back. Tampa and Dallas. Could be way off, but I love Dak Prescott, but at some point, are they going to take that next step with him? And Brady, I'm not going to say, obviously, I'm not going to say he's going to be the problem, but once again, at some point, and I didn't think they played that great last year. Like, I didn't think Brady was even that great last year. I thought he played well. But I just think those two teams, I think they're going to come back to the pack a little bit more, let some other teams get ahead of them. Oh, a little overrated, maybe the way to say it.
I like going out on a limb here. It's two division winners, one team that won a Super Bowl 2 years ago and has the greatest player of all time. So I have a hard time putting anything or anybody on in a group like this that consists of Tom Brady. But hey.
But the other thing is I picked, these two teams in the NFC, which honestly isn't that great.
We spent a lot of time on Baltimore, obviously, in the first part, and just how they're constructed the right way. And you have a decider, at the top. It was back to Ozzie Newsome, Eric DeCosta, but that decider is listening to everybody, and you're coming to some pretty sound decisions. Right. They don't always work out, but there's a pretty clear and concise hierarchy and way of doing business. Not the case in Dallas, right? They're joking about it before the draft. Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones are up there with somebody who does know what he's doing, and Will McClay, who, if you wanted to win, just let him draft the players. Which I get it. It'd be really interesting to get him in an honest moment. Like, he could be a GM pretty much anywhere. But he probably is paid handsomely. He has job security. I get it. So. I get why you'd stay in that situation. You'd hope so, but
I hope so.
At the same time, Jerry Jones at any moment can just do what he wants, and it could be awful. It's year in and year out. They saved him against himself with Johnny Manziel in 2014. I don't know. It just seems like the way that organization is constructed, something is going to go wrong. Right? You're gonna pay a running back all that money, Ezekiel Elliott. You paid Amari Cooper all that money. I get it. They just have all the money to spend, but like at some point, some bad decisions add up, even if you don't think the cap is real. And their drafts have been okay. You've got an excellent quarterback who put up amazing numbers. He completed almost 70% of his passes for 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, but there was still something missing at home in the playoffs against San Francisco.
I think, I always talk about the four things: owner, GM, head coach, quarterback. You look at Dallas, the owner will spend money, but let's face it, Do you feel he's stable as a GM on the head coach? Do you like Mike McCarthy?
Yeah.
Right. Quarterback, good. So, okay, 2 out of 4, maybe. Tampa. There's one major question in Tampa, and I hope the guy's good, but the head coach. Does that change things? He's unproven as a head coach. No, I shouldn't say he's unproven. I like him let me take that back. Because I thought he did pretty well for the Jets. But this is still a new team, new situation. So, but he did, I always thought I thought he did a decent job with the Jets.
It's pretty good
I still
in
think
retrospect.
it's a question mark taking over, just taking over. And so how much did Arians have to do with the offense? Now it's going to be just Leftwich because, Bowles is a defensive guy. So,
I mean, it was definitely a power struggle, right? Like Brady, we have to read between the lines a little bit. Brady didn't want Arians. No, he's going to have more say with that offense.
It just sounds like that Miami thing was real.
It does. What if the Bill Belichick text was really a way of him kiboshing all of that and blowing it up? I mean, is Bill Belichick really going to accidentally text? Think about your own lives out there. I mean, maybe it's happened to all of us once or twice in our life. Yeah. But to a colleague in the NFL talking about jobs, is he really screwing that up?
It can happen. I don't know. It can happen though, but
it can. I love a good conspiracy though.
That's a really good one though. I like that one.
Dallas also took Sam Williams, DN, Ole Miss, and if you go through his history, holy shit, there's a lot there. A lot.
Oh.
Yeah. Bob covered it in the draft series. There were several teams who didn't even have him on the draft board. And one of them kind of joked that, watch Jerry Jones take him in Dallas. And they take him in the second round. And it was very celebratory in that draft room. Look, he's talented. Scouts say that, but was kind of like one mess up after another from high school to college. But it's bigger than that. Without getting into too much detail, like his home life and where he came from, and he almost didn't have a chance with the way his upbringing was. So, we've seen Jerry Jones do this, right, year in, year out, and once in a while it hits. More often than not, it backfires when he takes these character gambles. I don't know. It's weird though. I mean, I might as well jump into one of my teams though. I think.
Yeah, I want to hear. I want to hear your
Philadelphia.
teams.
I mean, Philadelphia would be the team that takes advantage of a Dallas backslide. They really would.
You're definitely going. You're going against the. I think you're going against the public opinion right now. They seem to be a team people are excited about.
I'm more lukewarm on it just because I'm
with you.
I like Jalen Hurts. I don't know if, as a franchise, you're in a position to go all in on him. And I mean, God, I just said how Miami was smart, right, for surrounding Tua with all these weapons. So part of me gets it. You've got a quarterback on a rookie deal. Take advantage of it. Spend. But I don't know. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if they won the division, right? Because the Giants are in total reconstruction mode. Washington, we'll see. I mean, they're trying to win, but they're doing it with a quarterback that Indianapolis couldn't wait to just give away. So I could see Philly win the division. I don't know. There's just something missing there. I guess I'm not there yet with Hurts. So it's more of a lukewarm.
Yeah, I like it.
The team, though, that I definitely am kind of out on would be Carolina. I don't know what the plan is, right? Sam Darnold was a quarterback. I was pretty excited about this time last year. It seemed like, all right, finally he's out of New York. He's away from Adam Gase. He's got some talent around him. It's going to work out. And it started good for a few games. And then it went south bad and fast. And
I mean, we talked about Tua's decision making. This guy, it's hard to figure out. Darnold, it's too consistent. I mean, he did it in college, Jets, Panthers.
I mean, you go 5-11 with Teddy Bridgewater, you go 5-12 with Sam Darnold. It's just, I mean, you bring back Cam Newton along the way, and he lost 5 games, and
that was one of the worst, uninspiring, and that was bad.
And you've got some pieces, right? You've got a DJ Moore.
They have serious
Robbie
weapons.
Anderson, Christian McCaffrey, Hubbard as a number 2. They could be a serviceable quarterback away from at least being around 500.
Could
What's the
Darnold,
plan?
could Darnold take it? I mean, could you do the old, it was his first year in their offense? You're like, you can't.
I've got his numbers up here for those who just, rightfully so, chose not to remember the Carolina Panthers 2021 season. Darnold went 4-7, completed just under 60%, about 2,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 13 picks, 71.9 rating, which is really bad in today's NFL. He was sacked 35 times in 11 starts.
It's just watching him. It was just the offense was like, it was just chaos. Like, it wasn't.
Well, they made Joe Brady the scapegoat, right? So he got fired. Do you think he was the issue there?
Don't know. No, if we're not there, we don't know.
It's hard to say, right?
Definitely, that's the old. I mean, but that is always the first sign of. Now you put yourself. Now it's on you if the offense doesn't work.
McCaffrey only played 7 games. I mean, they could definitely line up their own excuses if they so chose. But
they're going to sit there and say they didn't like what Brady was doing. McCaffrey's hurt. Darnold's first year, but we didn't like the offense. I can fix it. That's what Rule's saying. I mean, you could see where they can spin it to, let's take one more chance, I guess, with Darnold, but
it just feels like they're like, Jack in Titanic in the water trying to grab a hold of that door, and he's hanging on and he can't get on the door. You watched the movie. I think he probably could have got on that door, right? There was enough room. And Kate Winslet probably could have done it. But he's just kind of right now. He's just kind of like this, He's just kind of most of the Carolina Panthers' body is in that freezing, deathly cold water, and they're just kind of waiting to die, right? I don't really care what else is going on in the roster. There's a lot to. I mean, there's some things to like about Carolina.
That defense was tough. That defense was really tough.
You got some players.
Rushers. They do. They have some players.
Brian Burns, great draft pick, right?
Yeah. It's just the we talk about it's the quarterback. Like, Hurts is a question mark in Philly. Darnold is a question mark in Carolina.
So what's the plan, though? I mean, do you just want to be bad this year? And I mean, people are already hyping up next year's draft class. You're just going to try to.
They probably don't see themselves as being bad because of the other things are in place. I mean, the Eagles made the playoffs last year.
Yeah. They've got some smart football people there. I mean, if you're looking for a silver lining, we've been talking a lot about front offices. It seems like it, right? Scott Fitterer is the GM now.
I like Scott. I always thought he always was. I always enjoyed I didn't know him real well, but I always enjoyed talking to him.
Dan Morgan, assistant GM.
Yeah, they got Dan down. I don't know Dan that well.
I think he's got good instincts from what I've heard anyways. I feel like they've got some good football people there. They're built in a sound way, but it always comes back to the quarterback. It does.
And the coach.
What's the plan? And the coach.
The coach.
Yeah.
Those are some major.
Working in their favor, though, is the NFC, and there's a lot of unknown in the entire conference.
Yeah.
Atlanta is going with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ritter. Although I honestly, there's some optimism there. I mean, you've got two big targets now in Kyle Pitts,
Yeah,
Drake London. I kind of like that.
I agree.
Uh, but yeah, Carolina, we'll see. I know Matt Corral sounds like, Manziel 2.0. Not sure if he's going to be your savior at quarterback. Uh, Ben McAdoo, OC, he's back.
He might be good. I don't.
It's wild. I don't know. I mean, I covered him in Green Bay. It seemed like Mike McCarthy was really trying to hype him up, talk him up, build his own like mini coaching tree, and get McAdoo the job that he got right in New York. And it didn't work out. There was people who say he was banging the table for Patrick Mahomes and he knew he'd be a stud, but when it came to the offense, it was quite basic. How different is the offense going to look than what we saw in New York with McAdoo and Carolina? There was no misdirection. There was no motion. There was just very little unpredictability back then. You've got the players that lend itself to some unpredictability. McCaffrey can do everything. It'll be interesting to see how things change.
I don't know enough about it, that style of offense, but could that be a good thing for Darnold? Where if it's not too whatever, if they're making things real, I don't want to say, I hate the word simple for him, but if they're trying to work in his favor to cut down on turnovers and lean on McCaffrey more, even though he never stays healthy. But like you said, I like their number 2 too. That team is a good team. They really are. The quarterback and coach, though, are the major question marks.
Eventually, Jack's going to run out of oxygen on that door, Jim, if you don't have a quarterback.
What if I told you I never really watched that movie?
You've never seen Titanic? An all-time classic.
It just seems, I feel like I know it.
I'm not going to.
No, but I never was into it. So I was like.
You know what, though? I think that when it was coming out, I can't remember who the actor was. He was big in the 90s, and you've never heard of most people haven't heard of him today. God, people listening might know. But he turned down the role of Jack, whoever this guy was. And then his career kind of went, eh. And then Leonardo DiCaprio was kind of an unknown, took that role, and obviously his career blew up. But I think it was probably because of the reason you didn't really get into the movie. This actor was probably thinking, Titanic, that's gonna flop, right? Like we all know how it ends, right?
I'm like,
and
it
never it didn't really work out. Made a lot of money,
I know, that's one thing. It was like Independence Day too with Will Smith. That was big in the night. I thought that was terrible. I couldn't get through that.
Oh man. Well,
we're talking about teams that might not be as good, and we're talking about movies that I didn't think were as good as.
I'll say this too. I'm looking at the Panthers coaching staff, their mugshots. Former Syracuse head coach Paul Pasqualoni is their D-line coach, which I didn't even know. He just started this season. His picture might be the best mugshot picture I've seen of an NFL head coach, Jim. He looks horrified. It looks like Paul Pasqualoni is literally looking at a ghost in his picture. Pull it up right now, everybody. And it's like he's saying, "Holy shit, get me out of here! I got to run." It's great, but I don't know. Maybe he knows D-line. Maybe he knows how to get after the quarterback. Right? You see it?
Oh, that's good, man. He would be another guy I would talk about. Like we talk about, I just don't understand how he wouldn't want to just retire and enjoy his life.
Exactly. That was the last time Syracuse football was worth a damn, too. Like when he was the coach.
He's done it all. Like I can't believe he wants to coach the D-line.
72 years old, 73 in August. Where's he been? He started coaching in 1972, Jim. So he's working on his 5th decade. and I mean, he's kind of toggled between college and pro constantly throughout his whole career. It's kind of interesting, but anyways, he's scared of something. We got to get him on the pod, see what was happening when he took that shot. Maybe he can fill us in.
There's an old movie. I'm looking at that picture called Spies Like Us with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, old, but they do this test like to be astronauts, and they get off the testing thing. Their hair was like, their faces were like blown back and their hair was blown back. Pascaloni looks like that in that picture. Like he got off like astronaut training. Like he can't believe.
You just wonder, like does the guy taking the picture look at it and be like, "Hey, Paul, maybe we just try this one again."
That was good.
Or is it just snap, 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 like done? Maybe, you know what? Maybe he had Paul look at it and he said, "I got to get back to film. I got this. I can't be wasting my time taking pictures for websites."
I can't tell you how excited I am to follow their season, the Carolina Panthers, just based off this.
Best D-line ever coming at you now with Paul.
Pascaloni, Matt Rule, Sam Darnold. Whew. Here we go.
Anything else to add on the
No,
bad?
that's good.
We
Man,
good?
that was a good way to end it. That was good. We can't do any better than that.
Well, thanks everybody for hanging with us for this two-parter. We're going to be back in Hamburg soon, hopefully this week. What do you say, Jim? Do a little Hamburg brewing, pound a few Louis.
We know the answer to that on a day like this. That juice box, when it's hot out, pretty perfect combination.
I say we take it outside. Let's go outside.
I was just thinking we have to be out there.
Best outdoor area at any brewery in Western New York and beyond.
Agreed.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We appreciate it, and we'd love it if you rated, reviewed on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. And we'll keep this podcast growing. We've got some plans for 2022, so stay tuned. Thanks, everyone.